Audiomatic presents The Cure for Writer's Block by Andrew Main.
Storytelling is in your DNA.
540,000 years ago, a precursor to modern man, Homo erectus, upright man, picked up a mollusk shell and carved a series of grooves on its surface. 500,000 years later, Homo sapiens, inhabiting a cave in France, painted epic illustrations on the walls of the great beasts they hunted and the world they lived in. Why? To know the precise answer, we would have to travel back in time and ask them. But for a general answer, we can ask someone a little more contemporary, you. Let's travel back in time to when you were 5 years old and watch as you sit down at the kitchen table with a box of crayons and a blank sheet of paper. If you're like most 5-year-olds, you're going to draw stick figures of your family, probably with distorted features, because you're thinking far more abstractly than you do now. Drawings of your pets, your friends, your house. Maybe you also drew your favorite characters, Batman, Wonder Woman, R2-D2. But you probably also drew things happening. Was your family holding hands? Is your dog chasing a ball? Are there villains in your drawing? In many of your drawings there was some kind of conflict, an event that threatened to disrupt things for better or worse. This conflict could have been something real, a trip to the movies, something sad, moving away, or something you imagined entirely. You intuitively grasped that a story involved change. Now let's travel to just last night. You're watching yourself sleep. At several parts of the night you dreamed. Even if you don't remember it, your brain entered into a REM state and pulled up a variety of images and symbols from your unconscious and played them out before you. Maybe the dreams had meaning. Often they're just random data dumps. But we all had at least some dreams where there was a sense of structure and some inherent conflict that we or the person we were observing was trying to resolve. When your friend asks you what you did the other day, the details and observations you give are your own brand of storytelling. Do you focus on the minute details? Only talk about the fun parts? Even people who experience the same event will relate it differently, not inaccurately, but with various points of view and insight. These choices are part of your personal touch. All of these examples are meant to prove a point: you don't become a storyteller. You are a storyteller. You were a storyteller before you were born. You're part of a species that succeeded despite incredible odds because of your ability to transmit abstract information, share learned experiences and communicate across time and space. Within your mind is a built-in tool that can create narratives. It even works when you're asleep. The key is to understand how to apply it, from carving patterns into shells on the beach to sitting down in front of a keyboard, and taking the swirling maelstrom of thoughts in your head and organizing them in the form of words. Summing it up, storytelling is something you already do naturally. Try this: think of all the times you've told a story, verbally relaying something that happened or through other means, like selecting photos for an album. What are your natural instincts for story? The story formula. Let me tell you a story. It's really short. Here we go. 1 + 2 = 3. Isn't it riveting? Okay, maybe not. I didn't say it was a good story, but technically it had all the elements for a story. There were characters and/or events, 1, 2 and 3. There was a conflict, we were adding 1 + 2. This was forcing a change on the current state of events. There was a resolution, 1 + 2 turned out to be 3. What if we substitute the elements of the story with something else? Let's use a little algebra and change the numbers to variables. A + B = C. This story isn't quite as clear because the letters are abstract representations of things we haven't described yet. What if A represented a person and B was an event? None plus robs a bank = C. C is the outcome of that event. It's the product of the conflict. It could be: goes to jail, saves orphanage, becomes a crime boss, saves the orphanage, goes to jail and becomes a mobster. Your job as a storyteller, and to be honest, The fun part of the job is to figure out all the little details. Why did she do it? What choices did she make? Who was trying to stop her? Who helped her? What would be the proper outcome? Most stories are a little more complex with more variables than 1 plus 2 equals 3, hopefully, but the math is the same. Something happens to something and there's an outcome. Sometimes things change for the better. Sometimes for the worse. Other times they go back to the way they were before. We can make the formula a little more clear. Character plus conflict equals story. Every story is based on this formula. Even ones that don't involve people. A character is anything that can experience change. It can be a nun or a tectonic plate merging into another forming a subcontinent. Anything that doesn't follow that formula is just a description, little more than an encyclopedia entry. What makes a story compelling is the choices you make and the way you tell it. These are all subjective decisions. We could take our 1 plus 2 equals 3 example and substitute some slightly more sophisticated numbers and expressions and keep a mathematician on the edge of their seat. You and I might not be as engrossed. On the other hand, you could have an absolutely fascinating conflict and a character that's no more interesting than our number one, and have a story that falls flat on its face. You could have a great character, a brilliant conflict and a resolution that doesn't make any sense, and people will put your book down in confusion, just as if you wrote 1 plus 2 equals penguin. The few that either love the absurd or thrive on making imaginary leaps may decide you're a genius. Mileage may vary. There are countless different story formulas, but they all involve the idea of change. Things change in a story. Your job is to figure out the things and imagine the change. Summing it up, a story is how change caused by conflict happens. Try this, think of your favorite stories and identify the conflicts. What was the condition of the world and the characters at the start? What changed at the end?